Hello everyone! Welcome back to English 11 by the English teachers at Quốc High School for the Gift Test. I'm now in Hue Imperial Citadel, a breathtaking place in Hue. You know, in December 1993, Hue Imperial Citadel were recognized by UNESCO as the World Heritage Site in Vietnam. World Heritage Site is a very interesting topic of Unit 8. So now, let's come back and continue to study Unit 8. Unit 8, Our World Heritage Sites. Lesson 2, Language. In this lesson, you will learn some words and phrases related to our topic. Recognize and use appropriate intonation on choice questions. Use participle clause and two infinitive clause to replace a relative clause. Ready, everyone? Let's start. First of all, let's have something to warm you up. Okay? We are going to review the words that we have learned in the previous lesson. Let's see how many words you can remember. Look at the table. Match the words with the appropriate definitions. Ready? Let's check together. 1. Heritage matches with B. 2. Complex. D. 3. Intact. E. 4. Dynasty goes with F. Good. 5. Relic. A. And excavation matches with C. Very good. You have just reviewed the words in the previous lesson of Unit 8. Today, we will study some more new words. Please listen carefully and pay attention. 1. Archaeology. Archaeology. This noun means the study of cultures of the past and of periods of history by examining the parts of buildings and objects found in the ground. Archaeology có nghĩa là khảo cổ học. For example, Daniel is very interested in history and archaeology and often visits historic sites. 2. Preserve. Preserve. To preserve means to keep something in its original state in good condition. Preserve có nghĩa là bảo tồn, bảo vệ. For example, it's our duty to preserve the historic places. 3. Attract. Attract. If you are attracted by something, it interests you and makes you want it. If you are attracted by somebody, you like or admire them. For example, I had always been attracted by the ideas of studying archaeology. 4. Geology. Geology. This is an uncountable noun. It means the scientific study of the physical structure of the earth. He did geology at university. Now, move on to the next part. Vocabulary checking. What I want you to do in this task is to use the correct form of the words in brackets to complete each sentence. You have 5 minutes to do this task. Pause the video and complete the sentences. Have you finished? Here are the answers. Number 1. Here, we need an adjective in front of the noun site. So, we write archaeological, an adjective of archaeology. 2. Similarly, in number 2, an adjective of geology need to be written in this blank. So, the correct answer is geological. 3. Heritage site is a compound noun. So, we need an adjective in front of this compound noun. Let's write cultural. 4. The main blank is a noun phrase. This phrase needs the noun to be complete. So, what is the noun of attract? Is attraction. 5. The last sentence. After of, we need a noun. Write preservation. And we have the phrase a good state of preservation, nghĩa là trong tình trạng vẫn được bảo tồn tốt. Get all correct, everyone? The next part of our lesson today is pronunciation, choice questions. In this session, you will practice saying choice questions. Do you know a choice question or an alternative question includes the conjunction or and gives the choice of two or more answers in the question. Each of the alternatives in the questions is usually stressed. This is the example. Would you like to visit Huế or Hội An? Importantly, in choice questions, the pitch of your voice rises on each choice and then falls on the final one. Those questions are answered either by one of the options or neither, but not with yes or no. Look at the example. Would you like to see natural or cultural site? I'd like to see natural site. Now, listen to the exchanges, pay attention to the intonation pattern of the questions, and practice saying these exchanges.
Unit 8. Language. Pronunciation. Activity 1. Listen to these exchanges and pay attention to the intonation pattern of the questions.
1. Is Misan Sanctuary a natural or cultural World Heritage Site?
It's a cultural heritage site.
2. Shall we go to the citadel of the Ho dynasty, or do you want to see another site?
Let's go to the citadel.
3. Which World Heritage Site would you like to visit? Halong Bay, Phom Nha Ke Bang National Park, or TiengAnh Scenic Landscape Complex?
I'd like to visit Halong Bay.
4. When is the best time to visit the complex of Hue monuments? In April or in June?
In April.
5. Do you want to visit the ancient town or the modern complex?
I want to see the ancient town.
And this is the most important section in our lesson today, grammar, reduced forms of relative clause. Do you know a relative clause can be replaced by a participle or a to infinitive clause? Firstly, we use a present participle clause, verb ing, to replace a relative clause with an active verb. Present participles can be used when the verb in the clause is in the continuous tense or denotes a habitual action or a wish. Let's have a look at an example. Tourists who were waiting at the information desk could not get tickets. In this sentence, who were waiting at the information desk is a relative clause with an active verb. This clause is replaced by a present participle, verb ing, and we have the second sentence like this. Tourists waiting at the information desk could not get tickets. Waiting at the information desk is a reduced form of a relative clause. Similarly, we have another example. Many students who attend this college volunteer at the Heritage Museum. The second sentence rewritten like, many students attending this college volunteer at the Heritage Museum. Attending this college is a reduced form of relative clause in the sentence. In the second case, we use a past participle clause to replace a relative clause with a passive verb. I have an example like this. The ancient houses which were destroyed by the fire are now under reconstruction. In this sentence, which were destroyed by the fire is a relative clause with the passive verb. This clause is replaced by using a past participle, PP. The ancient houses destroyed by the fire are now under reconstruction. Destroyed by the fire is a reduced form of this relative clause. Thirdly, we can use a to infinitive clause to replace a relative clause after ordinal numbers like the first, the second. Superlative like the best, the most beautiful, and after the next, the last, and the only. For example, Bảo Đại was the last king of the Nguyễn dynasty that ruled the country. Can you see the phrase that ruled the country? Oh, it's a relative clause. This relative clause stands after a noun phrase which starts with the last. So, this relative clause can be reduced by using a to infinitive clause. And we have the second sentence with a similar meaning as follows. Bảo Đại was the last king of the Nguyễn dynasty to rule the country. Is everything clear for you? Alright, to help you understand these grammar points better, let's do some following exercise. Task 1. Underline the correct word or phrase in each sentence. The aim of this exercise is to check if you are able to recognize the reduced form of the relative clauses in these sentences. What should you do in this task? Firstly, identify the reduced relative clause in each sentence. Secondly, look at the noun phrase in front of the reduced relative clause and then check if the verb in the brackets has an active or passive meaning. If it has an active meaning, we will choose a present participle, verb in. If it has a passive meaning, we will choose a past participle, PP. Also, don't forget to check if there are any ordinal numbers like the first, the second, superlative like the best, the most beautiful, and some words like the next, the last, the only before the relative clauses. If yes, use to infinitive to write the reduced form of that relative clause. Vậy, với bài tập số 1, mục đích của bài tập này muốn kiểm tra xem các em có nhận ra được dạng rút gọn của những cái mệnh đề quan hệ trong những câu dưới đây không? Vậy thì với bài tập này, các em nên làm gì? Đầu tiên, hãy cố gắng nhận ra những cái mệnh đề quan hệ đã được rút gọn trong mỗi câu. Tiếp theo, hãy để ý những cái cụm danh từ đứng trước những cái mệnh đề quan hệ đã được rút gọn và sau đó kiểm tra xem những cái động từ trong ngoặc đó nó có nghĩa chủ động hay là bị động. Nếu động từ đó có nghĩa chủ động thì các em hãy sử dụng present participle, verb in để rút gọn mệnh đề quan hệ. Nếu động từ nó có nghĩa bị động thì chúng ta sẽ sử dụng past participle, có nghĩa là PP. Đồng thời, các em cũng đừng quên kiểm tra xem ở trong câu đó có những cái dấu hiệu khác như là số thứ tự, the first, the second, hay là những dấu hiệu của so sánh nhất như là the best, the most beautiful, và một số từ như là the next, the last, the only đứng trước những cái mệnh đề quan hệ đó hay không. Nếu như có những cái từ đó trong câu thì các em hãy sử dụng to infinitive để mà viết cái dạng rút gọn của những mệnh đề quan hệ. Bây giờ các em đã hiểu chưa? So, is everything clear for you? Let's do number 1. This is an example I do for you. Number 1. Now, identify the reduced relative clause first. It is in the red frame which you can see on the slide. Next, look at the noun phrase, the pagodas, and then check if the verb in that clause is active or passive. Cụm này có nghĩa là những ngôi chùa nằm trên đường Trần Phú. Vậy thì nghĩa động từ phải là nghĩa chủ động. So, the verb has an active meaning. We use a present participle, verb in, to complete the sentence. The correct answer here is lying. Do you understand? Now pause the video for 5 minutes and do the rest. Time's up. Let's check together. Number 2. First, pay attention to the framed phrase in red. It is a relative clause. Next, check the verb meaning. Cụm này có nghĩa là những di vật mà đã tồn tại từ triều đại thống trị cuối cùng. Date back to means to have existed for a particular length of time. It has an active meaning. So we choose dating to replace the relative clause in sentence number 2. Number 3. Again, look at the red frame. We have by and an object. By local craftsmen. So we have relative clause with a passive verb. Choose, made. Number 4. In number 4, at the same time, pay attention to the red framed clause and the words the onlys. So in this case, we use a to infinitive clause to replace the relative clause. Let's choose to see. Good. Number 5. Similar to number 4, what you have? The red frame and the first. And here, the verb has a passive meaning, so the correct answers must be to be recognized. This is one more task for you to practice. Task 2. Rewrite the sentences replacing the relative clauses with participle or to infinitive clauses. In this exercise, what should you do? First, underline the relative clauses in the given sentences. Next, decide if the verbs in these relative clauses are active or passive. Also, look for some other signals like ordinal numbers like the first, the second, superlatives like the best, the most beautiful, and phrases like the next, the last, the only before the relative clauses. This is an example for you. We walked on the bridge, which connects the two parts of the heritage site. Underline the relative clause in the sentence. It starts with which and ends with heritage site. After the verb connects, we have an object, the two parts of the heritage site. This is an active verb, so we rewrite the sentence by using a present participle, verb in, to reduce the relative clause. The correct answer is, we walked on the bridge, connecting the two parts of the heritage site. Như vậy với bài tập số 2 thì các em sẽ làm những bước nào? Đầu tiên thì chúng ta hãy gạch chân mệnh đề quan hệ ở trong các cái câu đã cho. Tiếp đến, hãy xác định xem liệu động từ trong mệnh đề quan hệ đó mang nghĩa chủ động hay bị động. Và đồng thời cũng tìm kiếm những cái dấu hiệu như là số thứ tự, the first, the second, hay là những dấu hiệu của so sánh nhất như là the best, the most beautiful, hay như một số cụm từ như the next, the last, the only trước những cái mệnh đề quan hệ đó. Như ví dụ các em có thể thấy which connects the two parts of the heritage site đã được gạch chân. Vậy đấy chính là mệnh đề quan hệ. Trong mệnh đề quan hệ này chúng ta có động từ connects. Và theo sau động từ connects là mình thấy có một tân ngữ the two parts of the heritage site. Như vậy connect là một động từ chủ động. Như vậy để rút gọn mệnh đề quan hệ này, chúng ta sẽ dùng present participle, verb in. Và câu được viết lại sẽ có dạng như là we walked on the bridge connecting the two parts of the heritage site. Do you understand? Now pause the video for 5 minutes and do this exercise. Here are the answers. Number 1. That word found is a relative clause with a passive verb. So we use a past participle to reduce the clause. The second sentence is rewritten as follows. Some of the relics found at the archaeological site belongs to the Li dynasty. Found. Number 2. That was built is a relative clause with a passive verb. So the answer is the Japanese bridge built in the early 1600s became a main tourist attraction in Hoi An. Built. Similarly, this is a relative clause with a passive verb. So the new sentences will be tourists should avoid purchasing unusual relics illegally removed from the protected heritage sites. Number 4. Pay attention to the last and the clause who ruled both parts of empire. The correct answer is he was the last emperor to rule both parts of the empire. To rule. 5. We have the relative clause that overlooks the Tubon River in Hoi An with the active verb overlook. So we rewrite the second sentence as follows. We visited an ancient house overlooking the Tubon River in Hoi An. Overlooking. 6. That has been recognized by UNESCO. It is a relative clause with a passive verb. Importantly, the 8 is the ordinal number. So the second sentence is TiengAnh Scenic Landscape Complex is the 8th World Heritage Site in Vietnam to be recognized by UNESCO. Now, let's come to the third exercise. Combine the two sentences into one using either an ing or ed participle. In this exercise, to combine the two sentences into one, you should use the reduced form of the relative clause to avoid repeating the subjects of the two sentences. Let's have a look at the example. 1. A taxi was taking us to Hoi An ancient town. It broke down. These two sentences have the same subject, a taxi. To avoid repeating the word, we use a reduced relative clause to connect the two sentences together. In the second sentence, we have already seen the phrases the taxis broke down. And the phrase was taking us to Hoi An ancient town needs to be put into the blank and rewritten by using a reduced relative clause. The verbs in the clause in this sentence is active and in the continuous tense. So the second sentence is the taxi taking us to Hoi An ancient town broke down. Với bài tập số 3 này thì các em cần phải nối hai câu lại với nhau và các em sẽ sử dụng dạng rút gọn của mệnh đề quan hệ để tránh lặp cái chủ ngữ của hai câu này. Bây giờ hãy xem ví dụ. A taxi was taking us to Hoi An ancient town. It broke down. Hai câu này nó có cùng một chủ ngữ, đó là a taxi. Vậy để tránh lặp lại từ này thì chúng ta sẽ dùng dạng rút gọn của mệnh đề quan hệ để nối hai câu này lại với nhau. Ở câu thứ hai, chúng ta có nhìn thấy một số cụm đã được cho trước, bao gồm the taxi và broke down. Và như vậy cái cụm was taking us to Hoi An ancient town là cụm mà chúng ta cần phải viết lại và đưa vào chỗ trống. Động từ trong cái mệnh đề này là một động từ chủ động và đang ở dạng tiếp diễn was taking. Chính vì vậy, câu được viết lại sẽ như sau. The taxi taking us to Hoi An ancient town broke down. Các em đã hiểu rồi chứ? Do you understand? Pause the video for 5 minutes and do the exercise. Ready, everyone? Let's check. 2. The underlined phrase need to be put into the blank and rewritten to combine the two sentences together. Leads to. The verb is active. So the correct answer is, at the end of the street, there's a path leading to the perfumed river. 3. Again, we need to put the underlined phrase above into the blank. and using a reduced form of a relative clause to combine the two sentences. Was damaged is a passive verb. We have the second sentence. The citadel gate damaged into the storm has now been repaired. 4. Similarly, the underlined phrase need putting into the blank were stolen is a passive verb. So the correct answer is the excavation relics stolen from the museum haven't been found yet. 5. The underlined phrase is a phrase that need putting into the blank. Were invited is a passive verb. So the answer is many a foreign guest invited to the opening of the Heritage Museum were not able to come. Today you did a great job. Now, this is something for you to do at home. Your homework. I have 2 exercises for you. Exercise 1. Choose the underlined word or phrase that needs correcting. And exercise 2. Complete the sentences using the correct form of the verb in the box. After you finished, send your answer to your English teachers for feedback. This is the end of our lesson today. Goodbye and see you again. Thank you.